The enigmatic figure of As-Samiri emerges in religious history as a profoundly disruptive figure. His story is primarily known through Islamic scripture, the Qur'an. He appears during a critical moment for the Banu Isra'il, the children of Israel. They had recently escaped bondage in Egypt and were journeying towards a promised land, guided by the Prophet Musa, or Moses. As-Samiri's actions would test their newfound faith, leading to a significant spiritual crisis among them. This event became a stark warning for future generations. The background of As-Samiri is somewhat shrouded in mystery. Some traditions suggest he was from a tribe known for its goldsmithing skills, while others hint at a more complex, perhaps even supernatural understanding of his origins or knowledge. Regardless of these debated details, his role in the narrative is clear. He is the catalyst for a major deviation from monotheistic worship, representing the ever-present potential for misguidance. His significance lies not just in his actions but in what those actions reveal about human vulnerability and the challenges of maintaining faith. He is a symbol of internal, rather than external threats to a community's spiritual integrity. The story of As-Samiri is a pivotal episode in the Israelites' journey, underscoring the fragility of belief, especially when a strong leader is absent. God, in many religious traditions, tests communities. As-Samiri can be seen as an instrument of such a test. His actions forced the Israelites to confront their own desires and fears. They had to choose between the unseen God proclaimed by Musa and the tangible idol offered by As-Samiri. This choice had profound consequences for their spiritual development and their relationship with the divine. His name itself, As-Samiri, has invited scholarly discussion. Some link it to Samaria, suggesting a geographical or tribal connection, while others interpret it more broadly, perhaps indicating a dissenter or a sorcerer. What remains consistent across interpretations is his role as an antagonist to Musa's divine mission. He is not merely a troublemaker, he actively seeks to divert people from the path of God. This makes his story a timeless exploration of charisma used for destructive ends, a warning embedded deep within religious consciousness about the allure of false prophets and misleading ideologies. The stage for As-Samiri's deception was set by Prophet Musa's temporary absence. God had summoned Musa to Mount Tur, also known as Mount Sinai. This was a sacred encounter where Musa was to receive divine commandments, the tablets of the law. These laws would form the bedrock of the Israelite community and their covenant with God. He entrusted the leadership of his people to his brother Harun or Aaron. Musa expected his absence to be for a limited period, a sacred 40 days and nights dedicated to communion with the divine. During this period, a sense of unease began to stir among the Banu Isra'il. They were a people recently freed from generations of slavery in Egypt, and their understanding of freedom and direct divine guidance was still nascent. The visible presence of Musa, their liberator and intercessor, had been a source of constant reassurance. His sudden departure, even for a divine purpose, created a vacuum. This void was not just physical but also psychological and spiritual. Impatience grew, and with it, a yearning for certainty and tangible signs of divine presence, something they had perhaps grown accustomed to in the idol-rich environment of Egypt. As-Samiri keenly observed this growing restlessness, he recognized the vulnerability of a people in transition. Their faith, though sincere, was perhaps not yet deeply rooted enough to withstand such a test without their primary guide. The Israelites were accustomed to miracles and direct divine intervention through Musa. His prolonged stay on the mountain began to fuel doubts and anxieties. Whispers likely started to circulate. Had Musa abandoned them? Would he ever return? This uncertainty became fertile ground for As-Samiri to plant his seeds of discord and misguidance. Harun, left in charge, faced an increasingly difficult situation. He attempted to maintain order and remind the people of Musa's mission and God's promises. However, the collective anxiety was a powerful force. The desire for a visible focal point for their devotion, something to bridge the gap left by Musa's absence, began to manifest. This yearning for the tangible, a common human trait, was precisely what As-Samiri would exploit. He saw an opportunity not just to cause mischief, but perhaps to elevate himself to a position of influence within the community, challenging the established spiritual order. As-Samiri seized upon the Israelites' growing impatience and their longing for a visible deity. He proposed a solution to their perceived spiritual void. He called upon the people to bring forth their gold jewelry, ornaments they had carried with them from Egypt, remnants of their past lives. He suggested that this gold could be used to create something that would guide them, or perhaps represent the divine power they felt was missing in Musa's absence. The allure of a tangible object of worship was strong for a people recently exposed to the polytheistic practices of Egypt. With the collected gold, As-Samiri fashioned a golden calf. The Quranic account describes him throwing into the molten gold a handful of dust, said to be taken from the footsteps of the angel Jibril's or Gabriel's horse. This act, according to some interpretations, imbued the calf with a strange property. It emitted a lowing sound, like a living animal. This sound added a layer of mystique and perceived vitality to the idol. It was a clever trick designed to impress the already unsettled Israelites. The calf was not just a static statue, it seemed to possess a form of life, making it more convincing as an object of veneration. Presenting the calf, As-Samiri declared or implied that this was their god, and the god of Musa. He suggested that Musa had forgotten or forsaken this deity by going up the mountain. This was a direct challenge to the monotheistic teachings Musa had painstakingly instilled. The calf offered immediate, visible gratification. It did not require abstract faith in an unseen god. It was there, gleaming and making sounds, seemingly responsive. For some of the Israelites weary and anxious, this was a comforting, albeit deeply misguided alternative to waiting for Musa's return and relying on unseen divine guidance. The creation of the golden calf was a masterstroke of deception. It appealed to several weaknesses: their impatience, their desire for a tangible god, and their past conditioning in Egypt where animal cults were common. As-Samiri did not just build an idol, he crafted a narrative around it. He provided an explanation, however false, for Musa's absence and offered what appeared to be a readily accessible source of divine connection. This act of creating a physical representation of divinity was a profound betrayal of the covenant they were meant to uphold, a direct violation of the principles of pure monotheism. Understanding As-Samiri's motivations requires looking into the psychology of a charismatic but ultimately destructive individual. One prominent motive often attributed to him is a desire for power and influence. Musa was the undisputed leader, the direct recipient of divine revelation. In Musa's absence, As-Samiri saw an opportunity to elevate his own status. By creating the golden calf and presenting it as a new focal point of worship, he positioned himself as an alternative spiritual guide. He sought the attention and adulation of the people, craving a leadership role he could not legitimately attain. Jealousy may also have played a significant part in As-Samiri's actions. He might have envied Musa's unique relationship with God and his authority over the Banu Isra'il. This envy could have festered, leading him to undermine Musa's teachings and challenge his spiritual leadership. The act of creating the calf was not just an act of theological rebellion, but also a personal affront to Musa. It was a way to demonstrate that he, As-Samiri, could also command the people's devotion, albeit through deceptive means. This desire to usurp or rival established authority is a common trait among those who lead others astray. Furthermore, As-Samiri might have possessed a particular kind of knowledge or skill, perhaps in metallurgy or even illusion, which he misused. The Quranic reference to him seeing what others did not see and using it suggests a perception or ability that set him apart. Instead of using this for good, he exploited it for personal gain and to mislead others. This highlights the moral responsibility that comes with any form of special knowledge or talent. As-Samiri represents the archetype of the gifted individual who succumbs to the temptation of manipulating others for selfish ends. A deeper, perhaps more insidious motivation could have been a genuine disbelief or a twisted understanding of spirituality. He might have sincerely, though erroneously, believed that people needed tangible forms of worship. Or more cynically, he might have simply reveled in chaos and the ability to sway the masses. His actions demonstrate a profound lack of respect for the divine and for the spiritual well-being of his community. He prioritized his own ego and ambitions over the truth and the guidance that had been provided. His psychology is that of a manipulator, preying on the vulnerabilities of others to satisfy his own needs. Section 5. Whispers and Wonders, As-Samiri's Methods of Persuasion. As-Samiri employed several sophisticated methods of deception to sway the Banu Isra'il. His primary tactic was to create and exploit uncertainty. With Musa absent on the mountain, questions about his return and his mission naturally arose. As-Samiri amplified these doubts. He likely spread whispers suggesting Musa might not come back, or that Musa had somehow lost his way or even his God. By undermining their confidence in their established leader and the divine plan, he made the people more receptive to alternative solutions that he, conveniently, was ready to provide. This manufactured crisis of faith was crucial for his plan. Another key method was the provision of a tangible, sensory alternative to abstract faith. The concept of an unseen God, demanding obedience and patience, could be challenging for a people accustomed to more concrete forms of worship. As-Samiri offered them the golden calf, something they could see, touch, and even hear. The lowing sound of the calf was a particularly cunning addition. It created an illusion of life and divine presence, making the idol seem more potent and real. This appeal to the senses bypassed rational thought and tapped into more primal desires for immediate connection and reassurance. He also used persuasive rhetoric, skillfully playing on the people's emotions and existing anxieties. He likely reminded them of the idol worship they had witnessed in Egypt, subtly normalizing the idea. He presented the calf not as a complete break from their past, but perhaps as a more accessible form of the divine. His words would have been carefully chosen to soothe their fears while simultaneously guiding them towards his desired outcome. Charisma and the ability to articulate a compelling, albeit false, narrative are powerful tools of deception, and As-Samiri appears to have wielded them effectively against a vulnerable populace. Finally, As-Samiri capitalized on their impatience. The 40 days of Musa's absence seemed an eternity to a people waiting in the harsh desert environment. They craved progress, certainty, and a clear path forward. As-Samiri offered immediate gratification. The calf was a quick fix, a readily available God that didn't require the prolonged waiting and steadfast faith demanded by Musa's God. This appeal to immediacy is a common tactic of false leaders, who promise swift solutions and easy answers, preying on the human desire to avoid discomfort and uncertainty. As-Samiri understood this weakness well. Section 7. The Prophet's Return, Confrontation, and Consequences. When Prophet Musa returned from Mount Tur, bearing the sacred tablets inscribed with God's commandments, he was met with a horrifying sight. Instead of a community patiently awaiting divine guidance, he found many of them engaged in the worship of the golden calf. The sounds of revelry and idolatry filled the air. His initial reaction was one of profound shock, grief, and righteous anger. The Qur'an describes him casting down the tablets in his distress and seizing his brother Harun by the head, questioning why he had not done more to prevent this catastrophe from unfolding. Harun explained his predicament, detailing his efforts to dissuade the people and the fierce resistance he encountered. He expressed his fear that any forceful intervention on his part might have led to even greater division and bloodshed among the Israelites before Musa's return. Satisfied with Harun's explanation, Musa then turned his attention to As-Samiri, the architect of this spiritual disaster. He confronted As-Samiri directly, demanding an explanation for his actions. This confrontation was not just between two men, but between divine guidance and deliberate misguidance, between faith and cynical manipulation. As-Samiri's response, as recorded in the Qur'an, was somewhat enigmatic and self-justifying. He claimed to have seen something the others did not see, a reference to the dust from the angel's path, and stated that his soul prompted him to act as he did. He did not express remorse but rather offered a cryptic explanation for his ability to animate the calf. This response highlighted his arrogance and his refusal to acknowledge the gravity of his sin. He attempted to deflect blame by suggesting some form of preordained insight or irresistible impulse, rather than taking responsibility for his deliberate deception. The consequences for As-Samiri and for the act of idolatry were severe. Musa, acting under divine instruction, pronounced a unique punishment upon As-Samiri. He was to be ostracized, condemned to a life where he would tell anyone who approached him, "Touch me not." This implies a life of isolation and social pariahdom. The golden calf itself was ordered to be burned, ground into powder, and scattered into the sea, utterly obliterating the object of false worship. For the Israelites who had worshipped the calf, a period of repentance and atonement was mandated, underscoring the seriousness of their collective failure and the need for purification. Section 8. Lessons Forged in Fire, Understanding the Narrative's Wisdom. The story of As-Samiri and the golden calf is rich with enduring lessons, relevant far beyond its immediate historical context. One of the most prominent lessons is the profound danger posed by false leaders and charismatic deceivers. As-Samiri's ability to sway a significant portion of the Banu Isra'il highlights how easily people can be misled, especially when their faith is weak or when they are experiencing uncertainty. It underscores the critical importance of discerning true guidance from manipulative rhetoric and of adhering to established principles rather than being swayed by appealing but ultimately hollow promises. Another crucial takeaway is the vital importance of steadfastness in faith, especially during times of trial or the absence of visible leadership. The Israelites' impatience and their quick descent into idolatry demonstrate the fragility of belief that is not deeply rooted in understanding and conviction. The narrative emphasizes that true faith requires patience, trust in the unseen, and a commitment to divine teachings even when faced with alluring alternatives or the pressure of popular opinion. It is a call to cultivate an inner resilience that can withstand external pressures and internal doubts. The incident also serves as a powerful reminder of the human tendency towards tangible forms of worship and the difficulty of maintaining pure monotheism. The desire for a visible, accessible deity is a recurring theme in human religious history. The golden calf narrative warns against compromising the transcendent nature of God by reducing the divine to physical idols or intermediaries created by human hands. It champions the intellectual and spiritual discipline required to worship a God beyond physical representation, a God known through revelation, reason, and inner experience rather than through idols. Furthermore, the story highlights the necessity of critical thinking and holding fast to core principles. Harun's attempts to reason with the people were initially unsuccessful, showing how mass hysteria, fueled by a deceiver, can overwhelm logic. However, his stance and Musa's ultimate judgment reaffirm the unyielding nature of divine truth. It teaches that communities must be vigilant against those who exploit spiritual vacuums for personal gain or to spread falsehood. The narrative encourages believers to question, to reflect, and to ensure their devotion is directed towards the true source of guidance, not towards charismatic figures offering easy but deceptive paths. Section 9. Timeless Deceptions, As-Samiri's Legacy in Human History. The figure of As-Samiri and his deceptive creation are not isolated phenomena confined to ancient religious texts. His story resonates throughout human history, echoing in the actions of countless individuals who have sought to mislead and manipulate others for their own ends. While the specifics differ, the archetype of the charismatic deceiver who preys on vulnerability and offers false salvation is a recurring one. History is replete with examples of demagogues, false prophets, and cult leaders who, like As-Samiri, exploited people's fears, desires, and spiritual longings to gain power, wealth, or adoration. Comparing As-Samiri to other historical figures known for deception reveals common tactics and motivations. For instance, many political demagogues have risen to power by creating an atmosphere of crisis, identifying scapegoats and offering simplistic solutions, much like As-Samiri capitalized on Musa's absence and the Israelites' anxieties. Similarly, leaders of destructive cults often isolate their followers, demand unquestioning obedience, and present themselves as exclusive conduits to truth or enlightenment, mirroring As-Samiri's attempt to establish the calf as a new, accessible deity under his influence. The methods may evolve with technology and culture, but the underlying psychology of deception remains strikingly consistent. The story of As-Samiri serves as a timeless warning precisely because human nature possesses an enduring susceptibility to such deceptions. The desire for certainty in an uncertain world, the allure of charismatic personalities, the appeal of easy answers to complex problems, and the comfort of belonging to a group, even one based on falsehood, are all factors that can make individuals and entire communities vulnerable. The Quranic narrative, by detailing As-Samiri's methods and the Israelites' response, provides a case study in how such vulnerabilities can be exploited and the devastating consequences that can follow. Ultimately, As-Samiri's legacy is a cautionary one. It reminds every generation to cultivate critical thinking, to remain steadfast in principles grounded in truth and justice, and to be wary of those who offer glittering idols, whether literal or metaphorical, in place of genuine spiritual or moral guidance. The challenge he presented to the Banu Isra'il is in essence a challenge faced by humanity in every era, to distinguish between authentic leadership that uplifts and empowers, and deceptive manipulation that leads to ruin. The echoes of the golden calf incident can be heard wherever falsehood is artfully presented as truth, demanding constant vigilance and a commitment to seeking genuine understanding.